Hi, my name is Terry Nelson, and I believe in signs and wonders. It was December 11th. I'm in real estate. We just finished our meeting. We had a video shoot where we were taking all the agents that we just brought on board, and I was feeling good about myself. We were ready to go celebrate to a local establishment, and my phone is just buzzing. I look at my phone, I pull it out, and there are several messages, maybe 5 or 6 messages from my sister in a row. She's contacting me on Facebook Messenger, and she says, uh, "You got to look at this. You got to look at this." So I pick up the phone and I read it, and it was just text after text after text, pages of stuff saying, "Hey, mom has been in a fire. Her condo caught on fire. She had to jump from the third story and she broke both of her legs." And I'm like, "What?" And so I call back, and all I hear is that they're in a fire. Um, and the information was so spotty and shoddy, didn't know what was going on. So this is a Friday. I have a basketball game. I'm a college basketball analyst for the University of Cincinnati. I have a game on Saturday that I can't get out of. So I'm doing the game. I can't, nobody's answering my mom's phone, my sister's phone, my nephew's phone. Can't get in contact with them. So all I know is after talking to my sister, the condo had burned down. And so I have very little information. I can't contact anybody. Nobody knows, but everybody is panicking and everybody is calling me with different messages. And before you know it, I'm getting a text from my nephew. Now, he didn't call me, he just sent me a text. And the text was a video of the building on fire. And so, if you can just put that in the context and understand how incredibly shocking that was. So, I don't have any information. He's not answering his phone. So, I sit there and I do the game on Saturday, kind of mindless. I hop in my car Sunday morning and I drive down there to uh, Lithonia, Georgia, to where my mom lived. And so as I'm driving, I'm trying my best to call people, get in contact with people, understanding what was going on, trying to get some understanding. And before you know it, I get a phone call, and it's one of the intake nurses at Grady Hospital. And she's explaining to me that there was a fire, and I'm starting to get more details that, my mom had to jump. She's 76 years old. Jump out of a window. She's got a broken femur in her leg. She has a dislocated ankle on the same leg, and she has dislocated her shoulder. And then she has burn marks on the back of her hands, and she has burn marks on her legs, and they're going to eventually have to do a skin graft. And my sister, Jacinda, she broke her back. She's going into surgery tonight. They're going to have to remove several vertebrae out of her back. And my niece, Tiffany, she broke her back. She is not getting any sensation in one of her legs. So she is partly paralyzed in one of her legs, and she has burn marks on her legs. There were 8 in total. My youngest nephew, 2 of them jumped out and landed like cats from the 3rd floor. So one broke his leg and broke his arm. He's maybe 12 years old. He jumped out. I have a 21-year-old nephew. He's autistic. And he jumped out the window. And he had headphones on and he had his phone. And he jumped out. And he ended up breaking his pelvic bone. And he's on the ground looking at his cell phone, his headphones on, still sort of not wondering what's going on. And my nephew jumped out and he broke a couple of vertebrae in his back, cracked a couple of vertebrae in his back, and he had burn marks on his back and his hamstrings. How did we get there? Wow. So as the details begin to start pouring in, I'm calling, and this lady is telling me all this happened. If you can get here before 6, You can see them because the hospital closes at 6, and due to COVID measures, they're not allowing any more visitors after this month or after tonight. And I wouldn't, according to my GPS, I wasn't going to get there until 8 p.m. So not only did I not know what was going on, by the time I get there, I won't be able to see my family. Well, if you back up a little bit, my nephew, who was not supposed to even be there, he was spending the night at his girlfriend's house. They sort of got into an argument. He decided to come back home before his first day of work to where my mom and sister and everybody was staying. And so he was going to take a shower. He brought them food, so they ate. My mom just came back from therapy on her hip. And she had, I brought her down here to Cincinnati a couple weeks before, and she was limping around. I'm like, Mom, you got to get that taken care of. She's like, I start therapy next week. So she had started therapy on her hip. So they ate lunch, and she went to the room to lay down. This was maybe 3:30 in the afternoon. So my nephew goes and takes a shower, and he comes out of the shower, and he looks, and he sees out the window that it was a red tent behind the window, and it was like dark smoke. And so he looks out the window, and people are downstairs in the building saying, there's still people in the building. You guys got to get out of there and jump. And he's like, what's going on? And they're pointing. They're saying, look, the building's on fire. And so he sticks his head out the window, and he looks, and he sees where the living room was, or that part of the building was on fire. And so he runs into the room, he wakes everybody up, and everybody's saying, what's going on? And he's saying, we got to get out of here, the building's on fire. So my mother was like, oh my goodness. So they go to the living room, and the door's on fire, and parts of the ceiling are starting to fall down, and there's smoke starting to plume in to the apartment. So they run into one of the bedrooms, open the door, black smoke plumes come out of the room. They close that door. They closed the door when my mom was sleeping because now that wall was on fire. So they closed that door, and there was only one door left in this 3-bedroom condo. So they go into there, and they close the door, and they're looking out the window. And so they're saying, we're going to have to jump. And everybody starts being scared, like, I can't jump. And so my sister, Jacinda, decided she's going to be the first one. So there's video images of her actually jumping, and she jumped, and she landed straight down, broke her back. And so 2 of my nephews jumped right after that. Then my niece jumps, and she falls and breaks her back and paralyzes her leg. All the while, there's parts of the ceiling falling down, the roof falling down on them. Another nephew jumped, he broke his pelvic bone. And then my mom, she looks back and she says, I can't do it. She makes sure, so my mom and my nephew, Jaquil, made sure that everybody got out. Then she decides, she looks out and she says, I can't do it. But the wall all around them began to be filled with smoke. There was fire starting to just go across the ceiling of the condo bedroom. And so Jaquil said, we got to get out. And she's like, I can't do it. We got to get out. We have to get out. And so she passes out. He picks her up, and she wakes up as he's holding her, and she looks behind him over his shoulder, and she sees this wall of fire, and the heat is immense, and it's very intense. And he's like, come on, we got to go, because his back is starting to now, burn, and his legs are burning. The fire is getting more, it's blazing. And before you know it, she passes out again. So, which I think is a blessing and a miracle, because if she was awake, she wouldn't have felt it. She wouldn't have wanted to do it. So he gets to the window, and people are outside now bringing a mattress from a different apartment, condo, and they bring it down there. So he looks, and as they brought the mattress right down there, dropped my grandma out of there, my mother out of there, his grandmother, and she lands and she breaks her femur in 3 spots, breaks her ankle, dislocates her shoulder. And as she's on the ground, once she hit the ground, she woke up. And I believe that the angel put her to sleep, because if she was awake through this, she wouldn't want to do it. She didn't have the I don't know if she would have had the courage to do it, but she knew she had to get out of there. And at that point, the ceiling started to fall in. This entire time, my nephew Jaquil is videotaping the entire incident as it's happening. And I'm asking him, why did he videotape? Because that's the first thing he sent me was them saying, we got to get out, we got to get out. And fires everywhere. Why are you videotaping? He said, I wanted to make sure that my twin brother, Jaquise, and my father, John, have video record of what took place and how I tried to save the family. And so what he was going to do is, after recording, he was going to throw the phone out the window on the grass somewhere so they can find it, and they will have a record of what went on just in case he didn't make it out, because he didn't plan on making it out. And so as he got everybody out, he realized there was a moment that he can make it. So, but the window now was on fire. So he's wiping the fire away from the window, trying to look to see, because they're right down below him, and he couldn't just jump straight down because he would have landed on all of them. So he had to project himself away from the window and away from the relatives that are down below them. And so there was a little embankment, maybe 5 or 6 feet away. He had to land on that, and when he landed on that, obviously his body went in between his legs, which landed first, and he ended up, going forward and lunging back. He cracked a couple of vertebrae. His back was, burned, and legs were burned. Back of his legs were burned. He gets up, and he's starting to pull the kids away from the building. And my mom is starting, she's saying, help, help. And there's people that are around there with their cell phones, just looking. And a couple guys put their phone down, and they pulled my mom away from the building, and they pulled my sister away from the building. Now, my mom was on the ground. When she hit the ground, she woke up. The roof was falling. And so she's covering her face up. And as she's covering her face up, the fire is hitting. So she had scorched all over the back of her hands, and the roof was falling, and it burned her thighs. And so they pulled her to the edge of the road and got everybody to the edge of the road. And my sister is just lying on her back, and a police officer was grabbing her arm, like trying to pull her away from the curb. And she's like, oh, I can't move, my back. And my nephew is documenting this. Now, my nephew is an aspiring videographer. He wants to be a filmmaker. And so part of this was, just a natural reaction, a God call for him, a natural reaction to film this. And he goes back up and he films the building. And right in the stairway, on both sides of the stairway, it's completely decimated with fire on the 3rd floor. The one stairway on the other side where the fire started, where it was actually there, a bunch of babies, bunch of kids, people came over, and this one guy was catching the younger children, helped them all get out. So he thought he did a good job of getting everybody out the building, and he did for that building, but they had no idea that my family was in this side. So it was just one of those issues that we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if they were going to make it out. He didn't know if he was going to make it out. A pure miracle that 18 people were in these 2 buildings, and all 18 got out and were rescued. And my mom, 76 years old, 3rd story, she looked down and she saw that, 13 to 18 foot drop out of the window. And she didn't know if she can do it, and she passed out. And my nephew said, no, I got to get you out. I got to get you out. So him lifting her and getting them all out was a pure miracle. And then once they got down there, he starts recording, and he's looking around, and he's seeing everything that's happening. And he's looking at the fire, and the fire is continuing to blaze. The entire 3rd floor where their condo was completely gone. The only thing that was left was a couple of pillars from that bedroom corner that caught on fire. The living room was completely gone. The kitchen was completely gone. The roof was completely gone. They had totally burned up. So however the fire started, once it hit that dry material that was on the building, it just immediately went across. Fire sprinkler didn't go off. Fire alarm went off after the fire hit it. And then it went off for like 3 seconds and melted out. So it was one of those things where when you look at it, there's no way in the world that they should have made it out of this, but they did. So they rushed to the hospital, and I'm talking to the lady on the phone at the hospital, and she says, well, we're going to take Tiffany into immediate emergency surgery right now. She has to have surgery. And so they took her overnight. Most of them had their surgeries that night. So they had to get her back stabilized. My sister had to have emergency surgery to remove some of the pressure off of her spine. So they took several of her vertebrae out of her neck and her back and replaced it with artificial vertebrae to relieve some of the pressure. And my nephew who broke his leg, my youngest one who broke his leg and broke his arm, they had to insert pins in his leg, pins in his arm to make sure that stuff stabilized. My nephew with the autism, he didn't get a chance to believe he didn't have surgery on his hip. They said that will be able to heal in time. But my mom went into surgery to put a pin in her hip and one in her foot. She had several pins inserted in her foot, one also in her leg where she had broken in 3 spots. And several days later, maybe 3-4 days later, they both had to go into surgery to get skin grafts. The doctor said, it looks like they're going to have to get skin grafts because they lost a lot of skin. So they took skin from one part of the leg, put it on the hands, one part of the leg, put it on the other part of the leg. And the entire time while they were on the ground, my mom was trying to comfort her granddaughter, Tiffany. Now, my mom has burn marks, broken leg, broken foot, dislocated arm, shoulder, and she's trying to comfort my niece. And there's video of that where she's just holding her because, Tiffany's on the ground and she is in pain, and it's all so surreal. So I get down there. I have no way of contacting them. I'm calling the nurses stations, trying to get into the rooms, and they keep moving them from room to room. They weren't allowing visitors. There was no contact. And then my phone dies. So I'm in a hotel down there in Atlanta, and phones are the GPS of our day. They have everything that you need within this one particular device. I didn't know where I was, how to get there. So I'm using my computer, but my cord I left my cord at home. So I bought a cord from Target, and it was a universal charger that didn't charge it. It only worked at minimum capacity once you plugged it in. It wouldn't charge it. So I'm using, trying to get MapQuest and map out directions, trying to find a place to get a new phone as I'm trying to coordinate everything that's going on here. And I'm realizing, okay, they don't have a place to stay. Bills are going to be piling up. The stress of what's going on is really going to overwhelm our family. I don't know what's going to take place. So I'm laying in the hotel room and I'm crying, laying on my back, and I'm asking the Lord, you got to show me, you got to give me the strength to get through this. My family needs me. What do I do? And instantly he said, GoFundMe. And so I just felt in my spirit like, okay, let me put together a GoFundMe campaign. And I'll just post a video and some of the images that took place, videos that took place on this. I'll explain it to everybody. I'll post a GoFundMe. And before you know it, it starts dinging, 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 dinging. People are donating. And I'm sitting there and I'm just shocked at the amount of people in Cincinnati that's willing to help my family in Atlanta. And this thing came to me back when I was maybe in high school, when I was in college, ready to go to college. The Lord said he would prosper me, but it wouldn't be in California where I was growing up in Long Beach, California. So when I took my trip to Cincinnati, we were on a team that went to the 1991-92 Final Four, 93 Elite Eight team. I was a starting power forward. I've been doing TV and radio ever since 1993. I'm a regular on Fox Sports Ohio for a show called Bearcats Insider. I do about 6 games a year on Fox Sports Ohio covering the Bearcats. And I am the radio announcer for the University of Cincinnati on iHeartMedia, covering all of the games. I have this popularity in Cincinnati as a platform that God put there for me. I didn't know that platform and the people that I've affected over the years, I do. And I'm not saying all of this to brag. I'm just setting the table for what God had already had put in place. So doing high school assemblies and junior high assemblies, doing camps and clinics where I share my testimony to little kids. I was a part of an organization with City Gospel Mission, and I had an organization called Dream Team, where it was called Dedicated, Responsible, Equipping Athletic Ministry, where I would do camps and clinics for local churches as an outreach, sit all the kids down when I finished the camp, and then begin to give my testimony about what God has done for me and why you should follow the Lord and add Jesus to your life and let him take control of the wheel, and you get back and just sort of get a knowledge of why you were here. And I heard this before, and it all started to come back as I'm laying on this bed. What purpose is a Greek word that is in purpose called prothesis. It's an essay. It's a description. It's a detailed event of why God created you and why he put you where you are. And that he ripped that page out and gave it to the angels that are in charge of you and said, make sure that Terry does this. So just like a GPS, no matter where you go and how much far you get out of in contact with the Lord, his job, the angel's job, is to steer you back into that path that you're supposed to be in. My mom had us in church all the time when we were little. She was in the choir. Ever since I was 9 years old, I was reading Proverbs. So it was all this coding that was inside of me that was preparing me for this moment. So people keep saying, Terry, you're very lucky. Your family's lucky to have you. And I'm like, no, I'm lucky to have them. I'm planning a rebuild, not a mass funeral. So as I'm laying on the bed, and all this donations begin to start to come in, people start saying, hey, what do they need? And I'm like, if that's not the most ironic question I've ever heard, what do they need? You just saw everything. They need everything. Everything was burned up. Everything was gone. And so I'm like, I don't know what to do. And one of my friends called me and said, hey, and this is one of my former bosses at City Gospel Mission. And he said, have you ever thought about opening up storage facility? And I said, thank you, Lord. So I couldn't think myself. He brought somebody else in my life to say, get a storage facility. So I told people, I said, hey, I have a storage facility. If you guys want to drop off donations, I'll be there Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how many people were going to show up. People were hitting me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. They were texting me. They were emailing me, you name it. So I get there, and it was a row of people. I had one of my daughters down opening the security gate to let people in and out. I had my son and my daughter with me to take the donations into a 10 by 10 storage facility that I rented out to get these donations. I didn't know how much. Somebody called me and said, hey, I got a couch. I got a couch set, gently used. It's a red couch. Like, great. Somebody said, hey, I got a kitchen table. Hey, I got clothes. Hey, you need gift cards. Hey, whatever. So it's starting to come. And within an hour and a half, 2 hours, I had to go back to the office and rent a second storage unit. So side by side, nearly, I get 2 storage units. And that whole first day, both of those storage units were packed. But people kept saying, hey, I couldn't get down there because the weather was cold. It was starting to snow. The roads were getting slick. So I said, hey, I'll be back again on Sunday the next day if you guys want to come down. I had to go and rent a third storage unit. And I got that third storage unit, and they filled it all the way up to the top again. And I tell everybody, hold on. That's great. The donations are great. Let me see what we have. And so the entire time I'm working with the father of my daughter's, my sister's daughter. So his name is Jamie. He was helping me try to locate some places for them to stay. So I was going to take the donations that we had from the GoFundMe, and I was going to buy or lease 2 locations, 2 houses for them to live in. One for my niece and her 4 children, and then one for my mom and my sister, and then my nephew, that we're all staying together. So we're looking, couldn't find anything. We're going over. I mean, we're scouring places, talking to agents, looking at stuff online. I'm getting frustrated. I'm going back and forth to Atlanta. I came back home to use my computer, use my setup, calling different people. And before you know it, Jaquil says, "Hey, I found something," because Jaquil got out the hospital early and went over to his girlfriend's house. He said, "Hey, I might have found something." So I drove back down there and I met with him and just talked to him face to face. And I told him, "Man, do you know you're a hero? You're an absolute hero." And in the process of me driving down there, I've done several interviews on NBC, World News Tonight, NBC, ABC, you name it, all the news stations, 7 interviews that were national, every television station in Cincinnati that was local. And so the fact that I have a media background, I'm on television, I'm on radio, it was the perfect setup for me to actually do that, to raise a war chest of materials to help rebuild my family. My mom she was retired, but she loved nice stuff. Didn't make a lot of money, but she just believed in buying the best stuff one time so you don't have to keep replacing it every year or two. So she had really nice stuff, and the stuff burned up. And the pictures, the memories, all that stuff burned up. So I rent a U-Haul truck, the biggest that they had, a 26-footer, and I grab all the contents out of the three storage facilities, load them all up. I mean, packed. You couldn't throw a golf ball at the top of what was going on in the back of that U-Haul facility and the U-Haul truck. And me and my son, TJ Terry Jr., he's at 14 at the time, we drive down there. And I call a couple of my real estate agent friends that were in network down there. They come and help me unpack. So we find a place. I end up paying for that facility for a year, and we unload everything. We just get everything down there. We put it in the house, and stuff started to piece together like a stained glass window. None of the stuff was together, but it fit so perfectly in this place. And then some of the stuff we ended up putting in a facility. We found a place for my niece, maybe an hour and a half away in Columbus, Georgia. And the reason we wanted to go to Columbus, Georgia was because they have a program there for autism for my nephew. So it's one of those things where they teach you how to function and drive a car and become responsible and pay bills so you can transition out of living with your parents into making it on your own. So I found a facility out there, U-Haul facility, that I can use their storage, put all that stuff there, came back home, and I did one last round of donations, and I used one of the storage facilities and filled it back up to the top once again and paid that place off, the house in Columbus, for a year. Took all those donations, drove them down there. As I'm doing all this, in Cincinnati, a guy by the name of Ed Hartman with Furniture Fair calls me, along with Anthony Munoz, a former All-American at USC and Cincinnati Bengals Hall of Famer, the greatest offensive lineman of all time. They're in partnership with this company called Furniture Fair. He calls me and says, "Hey, I want to donate all the bedding for you guys. You just tell me exactly what you need. I'm going to donate all the bedding." So I got my mom and sisters those adjustable beds because they couldn't get up and down out of the beds. And got king size or queen size beds for my nephew and bunks for my little nephews. And we were still a bed short. So I took all that stuff down in a separate trip. So this is like the third trip I go down there. I set up the beds, get them all taken care of. And as I'm doing that, I get in contact with a lady called for me for trying to get some donations for another bed to a furniture company. A guy by the name of Vince out in Georgia, he just opened up a bedding company, and he said, My wife and I just opened this, and we were praying that the Lord could use us to bless some family that was in need, that needed us as sort of a tie. And he said, "This is the perfect story." I told him the story. He goes, "This is absolutely the perfect story." Brother, we sat, we prayed on the phone, never met the guy, didn't even see him. We met, we talked on the phone, and I told him, "Hey, I'll be back in contact. When I come down there again, we'll grab it because Tiffany doesn't get out of rehab for another 3 weeks." So the end of February, Tiffany's getting out of the rehab. I got to find a place. We fill the place. I drive down there with all this stuff, get it out of storage. Me and my nephew Jaquil and Jaquise, and we grab everything out of storage. We take it to Tiffany's house in Columbus, furnish her apartment, and then while they're doing that, I furnished the house. I hopped in the bed, didn't know where it was. It was 2.5 hours away. So as they're trying to put the stuff away, I hop into the U-Haul and we drive 2.5 hours to this spot in Georgia. Talk to the guy. We stayed there about 35, 40 minutes, and just, I mean, had a man crush on the dude. We just fell in love. His story was amazing. He was, a former pastor. He was very active in the church, but realized that ministry was, not a building, but it was actually what you're doing in the lives of people. So him and his wife got out of that and decided to open this mattress shop. And it was one of those things where you had to meet by appointment because of COVID. And he goes, "You wouldn't believe the amount of traffic that we're getting and the amount of blessings that we're getting." And I said, "Well, it's no coincidence that when your heart's in the right place and you're doing what the Lord has called you to do, it's going to prosper you." And so he brought me in here. He said, "Look, I'm going to give you this mattress. And this is the best on the market. It's soft." I'm sitting there, I'm touching it. And he had a little sample, and it was, part of it, where they have the little, the mattress where it's cut open, and you can see the inside, the box springs, and how it's built, and the layer upon layer of comfort that they manufactured. He goes, "You couldn't find a better mattress on the market than this one. This is what we're going to give for your niece Tiffany." And I'm sitting over there, and my eyes are welling up. And he's one-on-one. He's talking to Jaquil because Jaquil didn't need to make this trip. And I'm sitting there, and as they're sitting there sharing, Jaquil's sharing his story with this guy Vince. I'm sitting there watching, and I'm listening, and I'm saying, "This is only God." Like, we grab this mattress, we drive by, set it up, and I had to get back because I had a radio show the next day. But I'm sitting there, and as I'm driving back, like, I got there, it was a one-day trip. I rented the car, got the truck when I was there, put all the stuff in there, dropped the truck off to my sister because she was going to end up driving some stuff off. I got back in the van that I rented, and I'm driving back. This was 1:30 in the morning. I'm driving back, and I had to be there for a taping in the morning. I had a TV show taping for Fox Sports Ohio, and I had to be there at 11. We taped at 11, so I had to be there about 10 o'clock. And as I'm driving back, it's sort of an all-night trip. I haven't slept. I'm a Red Bull in, have my music blasting, I'm going to audio tapes, I'm doing the whole nine. And I just, for a moment, just stopped. And just as I turned everything off, and I'm just driving down the road, down 75, and realized what just happened. How did I do this? I had no idea. I had no plan. None of this stuff I didn't have a contingency plan. What happens if the fire destroys everything in your house? This is the model that you take. I didn't know about doing the GoFundMe. I didn't know about doing the storage facilities and asking for donations. It just started coming to me like out of the blue, like left and right. People were saying, "Hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this?" And, we also got in contact with an attorney, and we talked to the guy. And so that is still they're working out those details. But I had no idea that this was going to take place. I had no idea what to do. And in a lot of people's eyes in Cincinnati, I'm being viewed as a hero along with Jaquil. And I said, that's nothing could be further from the truth. I don't see it as me being a hero. I just see me as being obedient because I was lost and I didn't know what to do to help my family. But they told me, just do this. Hey, get the storage facility. Hey, put the GoFundMe together. And all these things start coming together. And before you know it, these people are reaching out to me saying, hey, I have beds, I have stereos. I had about another storage facilities worth of stuff that people were calling. And even to this day, people are messaging me on Twitter, on Facebook. Hey, how's the family doing? Do they need anything else? Do they need any more furniture? And I have to turn people away. I was like, look, they need gift cards. My mom likes to shop and decorate. Women like to make sure that the home that they have are comfortable and beautiful. So like gift cards. So people are, I said, look, you can give them to me, I'll mail them, or you can just mail them straight. And I gave them the address. And so people were sending gift cards and lotions that, deal with burns. And I mean, it was just incredible to see the amount of love and support that people have. And I keep giving updates on the GoFundMe. And it's about time for me to do several updates on Facebook and different things, because there's a following around because of the Bearcat community, but it was that community of believers that even those who had no relationship to the Lord were being prompted to give, to donate, to help, to pack the truck, to take stuff into the storage facility. I couldn't do it on my own. Like I said, me and my 13, 15, and 16-year-old children were the brain trust behind putting all this stuff in the facility, and the Lord did it all. He worked it all out. So to God be the glory. What a miracle. And I tell everybody all the time, when I hop in the car, anytime I take a trip, anytime I hop in the car, I pray this prayer. I say, Lord, protect me on my journey so I'll make it safely to my destination. Visually, I get a picture of angels sitting on the car, sitting on the truck, directing my path. God says in Hebrews that angels are ministering spirits sent forth for the heirs of salvation. And so I'm an heir of salvation. The Spirit of God is deposited in me, so and in my family. So because of that, we have angels that are here to protect us. And so I call on those angels and I say, look, according to God's word, you're here to protect me. Now guide me and make sure that this trip is prosperous and successful, that there are no accidents to slow us down. We don't get any accidents, that you protect those that are on the road around us, that this place is there's no damage to the vehicle, that we stop and eat where we want to go with no trouble, that my family is going to be taken care of. And I tell you what, my mom is back. She's walking now. She uses a walker every once in a while, but she's walking. For the first time the other day, she went to Target. She got one of those little motorized vehicles, and she's driving around with her mask on, and she's shopping now, but she hasn't been out of the house, in fresh air in over 2 months, nearly 3 months, close to 4 months now. And just to see that, my niece, who was paralyzed in one leg, Tiffany, is now up and walking. She has a walker that she uses every once in a while, but they say, you know what, she's saying in 30 days, she's going to ditch that walker and she's going to heal. And she's going to be walking on her own. And all the other kids, my sister, Jacinda, I can't keep her still. She's constantly around here. She's driving places, she's doing stuff, then she's got to go home and rest. And I have to keep telling her, you got to make sure that you take it easy because, you're only a month away from, surgery and getting stuff taken out of your back and put stuff back in your back. So it's one of those things where it's an utter complete miracle. A miracle is defined as an undefined phenomenon that you cannot explain. It just had to be God-centered because there's no logical explanation for stuff to happen. This is what happened. There's no logical explanation why my 8 family members jumped out of a 3rd-story building and are alive. No logical explanation why my 76-year-old mother survived a 3-story jump. And, obviously with broken bones, with all that, but her attitude during the entire time. And when I'm talking to him in the hospital, I'm on video messenger, the Facebook messenger, and we're doing video chats back and forth. And the joy that they had, like they were just happy to be alive, like a fresh start on life. There was no complaining. There was no, how come, the food is bad in the hospital. It was none of that. It was this, I'm just thankful to be alive. And so I'm using the money to, pay their cell phone bills and pay their cable bills and electricity and all the stuff that the people that God used. When he says, give and it shall be given unto you, men will give unto your bosom, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will men give unto you. This is what happened. They give, and they kept giving. And as they give, I use what they gave to now bless my family and get them situated and get them to the point where they can rest and heal, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. Now, there's some therapy stuff that's going on because once the physical healing is taking place, and that's something that, God put in place, we're kind of like Wolverine. If the X-Men, our bodies are designed to heal naturally. But it's the PTSD, it's the emotional stuff. My sister Jacinda, she's still having a hard time sleeping because she still sees fire in her eyes. Same with my mom. And so you'll find them watching TV or reading books well into the night because they're afraid to go to sleep. They're afraid to go to sleep because they see the fires, they hear the screams, they see the shock in the eyes of the people that are looking at them as they were in that window and not knowing that they were going to make it or not. I mean, the people down there were telling them to jump, but some were just holding their camera there because they thought that once they jumped, they were going to land and they were going to be, they were going to die or they were going to end up burning in the fire. So to see the look from their eyes into the eyes of those people that were looking at them, I know why they can't sleep. I know why that they're having a hard time. And the unity amongst the household is starting to get there now. But the initial part of it was childhood stuff coming out, stuff that was unresolved from 20, 25 years ago, lies that people were living on and believing in and having their whole life based around lies that were not talked about, that people didn't have conversations. And because you didn't have conversations and you just believe what you heard from somebody else, you based your whole existence on these lies. This stuff was starting to come out. And that's what it was like, the Jack B. Nimble experience, when you literally put a fire under their tail and all of a sudden they jump or they react. And this is what's happening. Like, all this stuff was starting to unearth stuff that should have been gone a long time ago. And for several weeks afterwards, there was fighting amongst the family members. Not my mom. My mom had to sit there, and it made me so hurt and upset at the same time, but also had to be understanding that this is a process of the PTSD, that my mom had to sit there and witness this and watch family members attack each other. And because there were people that didn't know how to express themselves about stuff that happened 20 years ago. And they're complaining that, we're supposed to be healing, and here we are attacking each other. I'm saying maybe that is a part of the healing, because maybe you wouldn't have never said anything if this wouldn't have happened. Maybe you would have went to your grave and maybe died early and suffered sickness because you've been internalizing all of the stuff that has been in you that you would not get out of you. And because you wouldn't get out of you, this stuff is just having to come up. So it's like when a ship sinks and they have to go down there with an excavation team and buoy everything up to the surface to make sure that they get those things out of there that are valuable, or those things that can, ruin the seabed or whatever. That what the Holy Spirit was doing with my family. So yes, it was some ugly times for them to really start going through each other and attacking each other. But some of it was necessary to have those conversations, even though they were heated at times. Now, my sister has since, when I called her, she since told me that now she is starting to see a therapist. I believe she has her first session starting this week, which I believe is awesome, because they all need the physical therapy, and not just the physical therapy, but they need the mental therapists and those people that can help them talk through and get to the root of some of these problems. So not just when they heal physically, but when they heal emotionally, and then we can get them to heal spiritually and really take off from on another level, because God gave them another chance at life. And because he gave them another chance at life, you cannot go back to the same way you were before the fire. I mean, there is a AD, a BC, and an AD. And this before the fire, or the BF, the before the fire, you were one way. Well, after the fire, the AF, you have to be something totally different, because if God wanted to kill you, if he wanted to take your life, which belongs to him anyway, he would have did it in the fire. And it would have been totally understandable that that was what took your life. But instead, he gave you that ability to now recreate yourself. So more input, more data. It's like a computer that needs an upgraded hard drive. The spirit needs an upgraded hard drive. More word of God must go in there, more meditation on God's word, and understanding to realize that you're a part of a miracle that will be told for years to come. Family generations will understand what took place and how they are now a part of something that was so extraordinary. The legacy will never go away.